first time coming to Book Culture on Columbus. Thank you so much. Thank you for bringing all these wonderful people. Appreciate it. We are so thrilled to be hosting Jason Haber tonight for his book launch and wonderful presentation. I hope you are all able to get some food and wine. If not, grab it after the event for sure. We will have many copies of his book available up at the registers. And then right after his talk, he'll be going to the front of the store to be signing. And we'll be able to help you with the personalization and everything like that. So right after the event, you can get your book personalized right up at the front. But without further ado, I'm going to introduce the man who will introduce the man.
There's a lot of introductions.
And that is Ryan Eisenberg. So,
hello, everybody. I'm Ryan. I helped Jason write the book for about 9 months-ish, ever since last July. I was a recent graduate from Cornell. I had a degree in history, so going towards social entrepreneurship was a little out of the way for me. But he definitely converted me to believing in the power of social entrepreneurship. I learned a huge amount, both through editing and through just learning about various stories that Jason tells about in the book. So if you're in need to talk about the book, without further ado, Jason Haber.
Thank you, Ryan. And Ryan's being very polite. Ryan's degree was in medieval history, and so when I was looking for someone to help me write the book, and I got an email from someone who said, "Hey, I got this guy. He's great. He has a degree in medieval history," and I was like, "Perfect, social entrepreneurship, sign him up." But Ryan was terrific. Thank you, Ryan, for the introduction. And I just want to acknowledge Gail Sheehy's with us tonight, my very first boss, who taught me everything I know about writing. So if you like the writing style in the book, it's thanks to Gail, and if you don't, just blame me anyway. When we were writing the book, writing the first year, writing a book proposal, as a first-time author, these things are very, very complicated. And my literary agent couldn't be here tonight, but we were rejected 23 times before getting the book deal. As Gail knows, it's a whole process, and rejection after rejection after rejection. And after the 23rd, they all said the same thing. They said, it's really interesting material, but you're not basically a Kardashian. So on the 23rd, I said, why don't we just write under a pseudonym, Jason Kardashian, and see what happens? We didn't have to go that route, but we ended up getting it done on the 24th try. The publisher is Entrepreneur Press. They produce Entrepreneur Magazine. You may be familiar with them. We're going to go through the book, some of the highlights of the book, and I'll be happy to take some of your questions about the business of good. The first thing, and you can't really see it here, so I'm actually going to highlight it. There's a little dot over there. Later on in the night, we're going to get back to that dot and why it's so significant. When we're really young, we're told that we have the world is in our hands, that we can make it anything we want it to be. And then when we get a little older, we're told this. I know you can read in the back. My daughter's here, so I'm not going to read that out loud. Cross it out, maybe. But social entrepreneurs seek to change this paradigm. I spoke to one person in Amsterdam, a social entrepreneur, and she said to me, if I created an app that gave me fuzzy eyebrows, and 1 billion people downloaded that app, and I made $100 million, if I walked into a room, people would say, hey, way to go. They'd give me a high five, and they'd say, what an amazing success story, because my fuzzy app eyebrow device was this big hit. But if the same app brought clean water to 1 billion people, and I made $100 million off it, people would think that's dubious. That's the paradigm shift that we're trying to change here through social entrepreneurship. What we're trying to show is that there is a way that you can earn money and do well for yourself, for your company, but also at the same time have this lasting impact on the world. The question that they try to break is this get rich versus saving the world, and what they say is no, that's not the answer. What they'll look to do is get rid of that paradigm entirely. And so the 3 areas where they do it, first they try to do this in business by removing the verses and making that an and. And the second area is charity. We've done charity in the same way in this country. You wouldn't believe this, but it's been done the same exact way for 350 years, and we're going to talk about that disruption. The third disruption, if there's an area that needs disruption, is in government. And social entrepreneurs are leading the way to disrupt government in ways that have never been done before. And it's changing, has the potential to change the fabric of our country. Just some quick definitions if those in the back can't see. By the way, there are whole books, textbooks, volumes of books that are written just about what social entrepreneurship is. This is not a what book, this is a why book. And so purposely we move through the definitions in the book quickly. These are two quick definitions. Social entrepreneurship exists in the space where the private sector won't go and where government can't go. And this is a longer variation of that. And then last night, if some of you saw the Hillary Clinton video, they showed a brief clip of Ann Richards. I don't know if any of you caught it. But Ann Richards said it best, and so I'm going to, for tonight, borrow Ann Richards' definition of social entrepreneurship, which is this. Being a social entrepreneur is like being Ginger Rogers. You do everything that Fred Astaire does, but backwards and in heels. That's the difference between entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship. I'll have to credit Ann Richards on that one. So the first area of disruption is this area in business. And in the book, I call it capitalism 2.0. Because there's critics of capitalism now, and there are people who see capitalism as a hero. And what I say is it's not that it's bad or good, it's that we have a system that we can use to make everyone more inclusive. And social entrepreneurship is that's what it does. It helps bring more people into the fold. Entrepreneurs have always been amazing. You know, the first supermarket, for example. Anyone know where it was founded, where it was opened? It was right here in Queens. It was by Michael Cullen from King Cullen. But what's interesting is when he started it. He started it at the height of the Great Depression. Only an entrepreneur would be crazy enough to start a supermarket at the height of the Great Depression. And think about all the conveniences that supermarkets brought us over the years, but think about the flip side of that too. If you work at Walmart, your likely pay is $8.81 an hour. In fact, over $6 billion were spent from federal welfare recipients going to Kmart employees last year. So there's your income inequality, and there's your, of course, Walmart being a multi-billion-dollar company. So supermarkets are a good example of how capitalism can be a strength and capitalism can be a weakness. This guy, this is, anyone know who this is?
Milton Friedman.
Excellent! Give that man a free book.
What did he say?
That's Milton Friedman. So Milton Friedman said this about capitalism. He said there is one and only one social responsibility of business to increase profits. And what social entrepreneurs have showed is that that paradigm has been thrown out. Because in fact, if you work for social responsibility today, you can increase your profits far more so than you could otherwise. And I'm going to prove it to you right now, and I'm going to prove it to you from Main Street and to Wall Street. And here's a great example of that in action. This is a cell in Rikers Island. And this is the trading floor of Goldman Sachs. Now what do these two things have in common, other than some of you may think some of these people belong in here? What do these two things have in common? They have this in common. This is a reading program in Rikers Island. Now for those of you who know anything about Rikers Island, here's an interesting statistic. Recidivism in Rikers Island is at about 51%, and it's been stuck there for the last 25 years. And if you've read the recent news on Rikers, the problems in the island have gotten worse and worse and worse. And so the city wanted to invest in a new program to help cure recidivism, bring it down, and get people back into society. Cost $10 million. The city didn't have the money for it. But guess what? Goldman Sachs did. And so in the first of its kind program, Goldman Sachs launched what we call a social impact bond. And the way this bond works is really interesting. Goldman Sachs invests the money into this program that's going to reduce recidivism, hopefully, on Rikers Island. If the program succeeds, they get their money back. If the program succeeds plus a bonus point, they get their money back, and they get what we call a bonus. If the program fails, Goldman Sachs loses their entire investment. And this program was actually put in place with a backstop from Bloomberg Philanthropies. I guess it helps when your mayor is also the richest person in New York. So Goldman Sachs risks their money. They invest in this program. It's a 3-year program. $10 million goes in. And what happens? Is it a success? What do you think?
What exactly did they do?
They brought in, it's a highly specific program, so they brought in these trainers from all over the world to teach the kids a different way of life. It was educational, it was inspirational. It was a very expensive program to bring in this whole curriculum that was brought into the prison. And after 3 years, they started getting all this data in, and guess what? Total failure. Didn't work. Goldman Sachs got wiped out of its entire investment. Now, if this happened in the public sector, what would happen? People would be, waste of money, fraud, abuse. So Goldman Sachs says, okay, well, the program didn't work, and now they're waiting for the phone calls to come in. What phone calls are they waiting for? The clients being critical. So the phone calls came in, but something else happened that was so interesting. Clients asked if they could invest in the next social impact bond. Goldman Sachs said, wait, we lost money on it. If you were invested in this, you actually would have would have lost your investment. Clients didn't care. They thought there was something in this, and they decided to be a part of it. And so guess what? Goldman Sachs said, well, let's try it again. And instead of trying it in Rikers Island, they tried it in Chicago, and they tried it in Salt Lake City, a reading program outside of a prison with younger students. Both worked. The second and third time around, Goldman Sachs, if you look in the fall, their earnings had a little ray of sunshine in them, the New York Times said, because the social impact bond worked. And now what's happening is this spring, major firms on Wall Street are now investing in social impact bonds. So that's one example of Wall Street getting wise to what you can do with social entrepreneurship. Let me show you a different example. You have to look closely at this photo. Some of you may have seen this before. You see the flaw in the photo. I'm sorry if there are any Patriot fans in the room. That's a hint. Anyone see it? So the shirts, if you look closely, it's hard to see. They say Super Bowl champions 19-0.
Yes.
Patriots never went 19-0. They lost to the Giants in the Super Bowl. So why is that important? It's important because what happens every year when a team loses a Super Bowl? Those winning shirts of the losing team get donated to some village in the developing world. And what happens when those shirts go there? Textile industries get wiped out in local communities. Where there were jobs, suddenly there aren't. How do you compete with free t-shirts? You just can't. This is a mistake that's been made over and over and over again. Africa becomes the dumping ground of free stuff, and we think we're doing them this wonderful favor, and instead we're doing them the exact opposite. And some people just never learn, including the Romney campaign. This was in Nigeria. Romney and Ryan believe in America in Nigeria. Now, let me show you a different example. This is another way to looking at the developing world, not as a group to get free stuff, but as a market that could be invested in. This is how many, many families cook. It's dirty stovetop cooking, and it kills 4.3 million people a year. For those keeping tabs, that's more people that die from HIV and malaria combined. Now, what happens? Well, they breathe in dirty air, they get the black lung disease, the huts get set on fire because this is kerosene and it's flammable, obviously. This is indoors. And so what's happened is, year after year, there were these free products that were given out that weren't really well made, and no one wanted to use them because, frankly, they were ugly. And so then one company in Amsterdam said, you know what, there's a better way to do it. And they came up with this product down here. It's called the ACE-1. The company's called African Clean Energy. And this is a great example of capitalism 2.0. They created a good product that people will want. They looked at the world's poorest, those who make under $2.50 a day, not as a group to be pitied, but as a market. And they created this amazing product that even runs on elephant poop. I would try it at home, but it does work. And it has a solar component to it too. And the key is it's smokeless, and it provides the same cooking benefits that you would get without, the death and destruction. It's such a simple idea, and now it's catching on. Now, you say, well, if you make $2.50 a day, how do you pay for something like this? They're the world's poor. Have you heard of M-Pesa? Some of you may have seen him on 60 Minutes. It was a recent profile. Here's what's so interesting about M-Pesa. You can get a microloan through your phone and pay off this product over the course of several months or several years. Well, you say, oh, well, what's the repayment rate? The world's poor. They have a terrible repayment rate. It's true. Their repayment rate's only 99.2%.
Good.
Of course. So it turns out that through microfinancing tools such as M-Pesa, anyone in the world can afford a product like this. Here's another example. This is by a company called D-Light, and I spoke to the CEO of this company as well for the book. And there are these great stories in the developing world about how children read and what they do at night and how you light up your village and your hut. This is a kerosene lamp. The problem with this is, first of all, it's not a really good lamp. Secondly, it's used everywhere. It's flammable, it's dangerous, and it causes terrible problems in community after community. What's the solution? This company said, hey, look, we'll produce a really cheap light. We'll make it sturdy. We'll make it solar. It'll save on energy. And now instead of this, we get village after village with these amazing D-lights. President Obama was in Africa last year for a summit, and he got a first-hand demonstration of the D-light light and came away pretty impressed. And we talk about that also in the book. The second area of disruption, which is so interesting to me, is charity. This wasn't even in my book proposals. But as I started researching how charities operate today, I realized that there's this tremendous paradigm shift that's happening right now, with social entrepreneurs. I call it they're breaking the charity industrial complex. And you all know what this is. You've all experienced it. Charity should be meek in overhead but mighty in intentions. This is the, oh, well, don't spend money on marketing. It's got to go into the field. The best way to secure donations is through supporting guilt. You've all gotten the pieces of mail of children crying and sad videos. And then third, you reward giving, not impact. Everyone says it. Well, I'm doing charity work. It's the expression. You ever hear someone talk about the impact of their charity work? It's, oh, I'm doing charity work. Well, where does all of this come from? Where does this psychology come from? It comes from one person, it turns out. It comes from this guy. And no, he's not the chair of the Republican Party. Anyone know who this is? If you know who this is, then that'd be really impressive. Anyone? This is John Winthrop. And in 1630, John Winthrop sails to America and delivers this famous sermon, the City on a Hill sermon, as the Puritans are coming across to the Massachusetts Bay Colony. And what he says is the Puritans have this terrible problem because the Puritans come to America, right, for religious freedom, but they want something else too. They want to make money. So what do the Puritans say? John Winthrop said, here's what we're going to do. We don't want to go to hell. We want our religious freedom, but we also want to make money. So charity is our penance. Charity is what we give back. So charity became not so much the solution, but the antidote to going to hell. And that's how it was set up in 1630, and for 350 years, it's been the exact same way. And you know the marketing materials. You've all seen them. And then there were companies who came along and said, you know what? There is a better way to do this. One example of that is Charity Water. Charity Water's images are uplifting, they're happy, and they spend money on marketing. You know what Charity Water says? They say, listen, we're going to have two accounts. We're going to have one account where all the money goes into the field, just like you might expect off the street. And then we have another account. And you're going to go to these events and you're going to pay lots of money. And how much of that goes into the field? $0. $0 goes into the field. So they allowed themselves to raise money through different sources, and they were able to spend money to have real marketing campaigns. And they have this sort of very cool brand. When I spoke to Scott Harrison, who founded Charity Water, he said to me, that's what we did. We made charity cool, which no one had thought to do before. Guess what? When you all go home tonight, the toothpaste that you hold will have more marketing money invested in it than the charities that you love. Why? Why is it so wrong to spend money on charities, on their marketing, on their staff? Shouldn't they hire, amazing people? Why should amazing people get paid less? These are the paradigm shifts that social entrepreneurs are changing. Here's an example of Charity Water's marketing, by the way. And what you'll see is, slide advances. What you'll see is it's very, it's all positive, everyone's smiling, it's all uplifting. Another charity that I love, a nonprofit that I love, is the Adventure Project, where they focus on jobs. Not looking at the developing world as this group to be pitied, but as a group that wants jobs. Give them jobs and you'll change the community. This is one of my favorite items, that they train healthcare workers in Uganda, and they sell this kit. It's called a mama kit. Why is this important? Well, if you are expecting in Uganda, you're also expected to do something else. You're expected to show up to the hospital with tools for your baby to be delivered. They're not provided by the hospitals there. And so women save up for these kits, and so what the Adventure Project has done is they train healthcare workers to go into the field. They get paid. Women save up, and they for about $60, right, Liz?
I'm not sure.
I think it's $60. That's what Becky told me. For $60, you get your kit. Really amazing stuff that's changing the face of the world. Then last is government. In government, the problem you have today is this. If you have an idea, a really good idea, you're going to get criticized right away, right? Because this is the climate that we're in today. And if the idea goes really well, sure, you'll get applauded. But the danger is when the idea doesn't go well, you get the Ollie North. No one wants to get the Ollie North. In the private sector, do you know how many businesses fail when they start? What percent? Anyone? 95% of all businesses fail. Can you imagine if 95% of all government initiatives and projects failed? When one fails, it's a scandal. It's a hearing. We hold the public sector to a much higher standard. But we don't want to admit that. And so that's the other thing that social entrepreneurs are looking to change. And where does this fierce urgency of now come from? One of the things that's different about this book that isn't in any other book on social entrepreneurship before is that we look at where does this come from? Okay, so the world is changing, there's been this zeitgeist shift, but why? And to do that, we have to go back to December 31st, 1999. Why December 31st, 1999? Well, it was one heck of a year, and I'll explain this photo in a little bit why that photo is so important. We had unemployment was at 4.1%. On December 31st, the Dow hit an all-time high, fittingly. We had not one, not two, but 3 peace accords in the Middle East. We were at our closest moment to peace and prosperity. And when the ball fell on December 31st, we had one worry that would stop us from our peace and prosperity. Does anyone remember what it was? We were worried about our technology. That was our worry that night. And it turned out we had it all backwards. It wasn't the technology we had to worry about, it was the world. So September 11, 2001, the Dow Jones was set to open at 96.05. It never did. Exactly 8 years later to the day, the Dow Jones closed at the exact same level. And what happened in those 8 years? Well, we had this. We had 13 wars. We had guerrilla conflicts. We had coup d'etats. We had major terrorist attacks. We had over 1 million casualties. We had a global financial crisis. And I probably left stuff out there too. The time period was so bad, I still don't know what we call that decade. Does anyone? Is it the O's? Is it the aughts? Maybe it's just a lost decade. We just want to move on and forget about it. But at the same time, something really magical was happening. At the same time all this was happening, in some cases, as I trace it in the book, on the very same day, this was happening. This was happening. And I hope I don't give anyone a stroke with this slide. These are different, a lot of focus here. These are different social networks. These are 250 social networks